So my name is Nate Singer. I'm originally from Cody, Wyoming. I'm at Rock Creek Cattle Company now in Deer Lodge, Montana. 36 years old. Been here on property for almost 3 years now. This is the end of my second full season out here. So we have Reminisce Ranch ribeyes and fillets that aren't aged. You can tell by a feeding program and looking at the steak how the animal's fed. So if you think about protein and you open up a pack of spaghetti, there's all these little strains of, spaghetti looking at you. Little dots, think about that as protein. Those multiply as it gets bigger, and what it eats gets trapped in between those fibers, and that's what creates marbling. And so if you're feeding corn to an animal, it will marble off that because processes in the fat that gets stuck in between those fibers. You're feeding, small amounts of corn or whatever you are, barley to finish your cattle, you'll see flecking, they call it, instead of marbling.
And this carcass, you see it, they are grass-fed finish. How do I know? For the high, low marbling.
Yeah.
This thing, no marbling, so.
You guys have really nice flecking of, nice marbling in all your meats, right? They come in. That's what I'm talking about. All these little protein strands are like little things of spaghetti. But you guys have a nice fat content in your meat already, and it tastes delicious, and it tastes like Montana, and it tastes the grasses that grow in the West. So we can take this Reminisce Ranch beef and serve it as it is on its own and represent Montana. It's only sustainable if it works for us, you, them, and everybody else, right? The summer of 2022 was my first season here at Rock Creek. And I was on a mission to find the best proteins that we could to serve to our members, right? What I was looking for was lamb. And so I started working with our importers from Bill's Ranch down in New Zealand. And then it goes to a warehouse in South Dakota, which was Steve's. I bought a bunch of lamb, a bunch of pork, a bunch of everything from him. I was buying some beef, but not very much. And he kept sending me samples of Reminisce. And every package that he would send me, there'd be like 1 or 2 steaks in there from your guys' ranch. And I would eat them myself at home, or I'd share them with the cooks or whatever, and it was always really good. And it wasn't until the beginning of this season, in 2023, that me and him got together, and I said, all right, man, let's do this. And now we use your guys' bone-in ribeyes. It's a 16 to 18 ounce cut, and they're not dry-ish at all. And we also use your 7 to 8 ounce fillet. And we've had nothing but great reviews on it out here. The consistency of Steve's cut house that he does is awesome. Like something this product coming in as far as the cryovac process, and the members really do react and love the fat content, the marbling, and the meats. You know what I'm talking about? There's not any giant veins like this coming through the whole meat. Beautiful. So we get them all dried off. We put them on a rack. For us, it's simple, just salt and pepper. So I'm gonna salt first. I do that so I don't get pepper in my salt. And I don't even really rub it in at all, you know what I mean? Just kind of let it sit. In butchery, when I was trained, I did some stuff with Adam Danforth. I took some classes from him, and he talked about fat, fiber, and fascia is what makes up proteins. And so it's being able to identify all those 3 of those things and what they are, right? So with your fiber, you obviously have protein. Your fat is the fat, and there's different kinds of fat in animals depending on what they graze on, what they finish on, and what they are. Like, for example, a draft animal, like a wagyu or whatever, will hold the fats differently in their body than an Angus will. And it's more monounsaturated than saturated fat. Here, I've cut it down on so it fits in. This is real marks. My granddad owned grocery stores, so my dad got trained into the meat department. He was a traveling musician as well. Being a butcher and a musician was kind of, hand in hand. I cut this one off one time though, if you can't tell, man. So I just stopped playing music. But at the same time, my dad bought a place called Cassie's in Cody, Wyoming. It's an old roadhouse from 1922, and we owned and operated it for 30 years. And it was, rated one of the best steakhouses west of the Mississippi by Cowboys and Indians magazine at one point. So it was right across the street from the rodeo grounds, and so people came to the east gate of Yellowstone, which was Cody, and went to the rodeo where Buffalo Bill started the Wild West show, and went to Cassie's, which was in the old house of ill repute. So a good history there. It got hired by a guy that owned a small farm and won the show Top Chef. I managed his herd for him. We had a high-end catering company that we traveled the country and did dinners for, private dinners, and started a provision company. And when we started a provision company, I started working at a place called El Mondo Vecchio. And it was an old world Italian shop. It was one of the first no nitrate curing facilities in America. And a man named Mark DeNeditz was my mentor there. He took time with a small crew of just teaching us the old world way. And eventually that shop got into some battles with the Supreme Court and stuff about double lethality for salmonella because we weren't using nitrates. And instead of Mark adding nitrates to his meats, he closed his shop. One of the last free things that we have in the world that we do is put things in our mouth. People have to eat, like they really do, man. And I'm afraid that, our ranch lands are in jeopardy right now, and our food supply chain of what we really need it for. And so I've dedicated myself to merging what you're talking about, the ranches with quality animals, with the high-end food, along with education, and providing a service for ranches as a consultant for a lot of years. To merge their ranch with their hospitality world. And so now I'm at Rock Creek Cattle Company up here. Our goal is to provide some of the best beef to our membership, and work with local ranchers, local farms, support the communities and everything that we can. That's what we want, But typically you want to rest your meat about half as long as you cook it. So what happens is when you cook meat, where the heat comes, the blood runs, right? And so say on a traditional grill, the heat comes from the bottom, the blood comes to the top. Before the blood breaks the surface, you flip it over and it sears the other side, which pushes the blood back through the meat, right? And it's back and forth, back and forth. And so when you rest it on the inside of the meat, if it's cooked properly, it's really rare. But as it rests, the temperature equalizes throughout the whole piece of meat. And that's how you get a rested steak. It's one temperature through everything. So we never cook a steak and go right to the plate. It's always going to cook a steak, let it rest, and go to the plate. But people who don't wait, it goes right to the shop, right to the table. They'll cut into their steak and be like, this is too rare. It's because it hasn't rested. Beautifully cooked, delicious. So rustic here. It shouldn't be. It should feel like you're eating a Bill and Carol House, but really elevated.